Welcome to this week's video. So your horse has a sore back, what do I do? Okay, so you've noticed or you've been told that your horse has a sore back. What is your next step? For most horse owners, it's normally to get an equine body worker, a physio, a chiro, or a massage therapist. This is not a bad first step, but I'm here to have a little vent about that. If you have one of those body workers who is constantly coming back to retreat your sore back and say, well, every few weeks you need me to come back so that your horse doesn't continually get a sore back, then you're not treating the cause, you're only treating the symptom. It's really important with a horse's sore back that you work out what is actually causing it, and we work out how to treat the cause and how to build up the back so that the symptom doesn't keep recurring. So what are some of the common indicators that your horse has a sore back? These are many and varied, and they're also some of the other symptoms of other problems that your horse can have. But just some to have a quick look at, bucking, rearing, tail swishing, being cold backed, humping under saddle, girthiness, anxiety or spooking at things that they don't normally spook at. That can sometimes indicate a sore back. If they're flinching when you're brushing them, maybe even putting their rug on, that can often indicate something. Biting or nipping, problems into canter transitions in particular, but problems into any transition, and downward transitions. If they're a jumper, if they're suddenly rushing at jump, twisting over a jump, or refusing jumps, this is a good indicator as well. So what about things that you can overtly see? Shoulder asymmetry. So the shoulder's not looking built the same on both sides. One looks a little bit shallower than the other. Often horses are a little bit one-sided, but any loss of that or any further asymmetry should be investigated. Any muscle wastage on one side of the body at all. For horses constantly carrying its tail to one side, that can be an indicator, as can direct evidence of a saddle fit issue like improper sweat marks, twisting in the saddle, white hairs, rubbing, anything like that. So if your horse does have a sore back, you really need to find out the cause, and quite often the cause isn't directly in the back itself. More likely is the horse having an issue in lower legs. So focusing your attention lower down in the body first and working up often helps you identify the reason for a back problem. So what are the problems in a limb that can cause a bad back? Any asymmetry. Have a look at hoof trim first of all. Does your horse have symmetrical hooves? Is there a low heel one side and a high heel the other side? This is really significant for a horse's back. Do you have heels that are too low and a toe that's too long? Imagine yourself wearing ill-fitting shoes, shoes that don't suit yourself, or one shoe that's slightly higher than the other, and how much that would affect your hip and back. So working further up from the hoof, if they're perfectly symmetrical and you're very happy with your feet, let's feel for some heat, swelling, some minor lamenesses in the lower limb. Looking at the joints for arthritis, signs of arthritis. One limb that could be almost a subclinical lameness that you hardly even see is enough for the horse to tense its back and cause you a back issue. Conformation. Have an honest look at your horse. The square, short-backed horses often have less issues. A horse with a longer back, a long loin, so between the end of the ribs and the croup, beginning of the croup, any length there can predispose them to back issues. Any scoliosis, so any bending of the spine, not a straight spine, or a roach in the horse's back, any of this will predispose a horse to back pain. And another issue is core strength. Many of us ask way too much of our horses prior to allowing them to gain the strength they need in their core to hold themselves correctly, as I discussed in the last video about how the horse carries its rider. Okay, so let's say you've investigated all of the lower limb, the hoof trim, and your horse still seems to have this sore back. What are the possibilities there? Firstly, it could be soft tissue. You could be looking at a muscle strain, a ligament strain or tear. Ideally, you get these diagnosed through a vet and then go to a body worker to get it treated. Sometimes an amount of rest is going to help just a muscle strain or a pull. But remember, coming back from any injury like that, we again need to reassess the core strength before we ask the horse to do too much correct work. Some other primary causes are actually fractures. If your horse is in a paddock or even in a stable, things can happen while you're not looking. So any real tenderness around the vertebrae particularly, again, you need to get that diagnosed. Because if you're trying to build up or get a chiropractor come in and there's a small hairline fracture going on, your horse is certainly going to let you know. So there are a lot of other problems just with the bony protuberances that can occur. So as again I discussed in the last video, kissing spine, really where those bony spinous processes can overlap on each other and touch, it's really painful. That could be happening. Sometimes they fuse there and calcify, that can be happening. Sometimes you're getting arthritis right within those vertebral joints. Sometimes with muscle strains, then you're going to get the opposite side even interfering with each other in the bones and overlapping. And again, this is really quite painful for the horse. You can see why a correct diagnosis here is really important. To just have someone come out and say they've moved a few alignments or they've put your horse's back in isn't often enough to make sure this problem doesn't reoccur. Now the obvious. Saddle fit, saddle fit, saddle fit, saddle fit. Okay, get somebody who knows what they're doing or have a look yourself. Is it clearing the wither? Is it allowing the shoulders to move? Is it not banging on your horse's back? And is it wide enough to allow for your horse's back muscles to grow correctly and clearing the spine of any direct trauma? There are other things that are often overlooked. It can be little things just like skin issues. Maybe it's rubbing and the horse is actually sore under its hair. It's a bit like the girth, girth galls occur without people even knowing. And no wonder the horse is really irritated when you put the saddle on. And again, how about us, the rider? I see many, many, many crooked riders on their horse, and if you are sitting crooked on your horse, it is having to bear that weight in an asymmetrical way and it will affect your horse's back. So it's really important as riders that we make sure we're in good alignment, we're sitting in the saddle in a balanced way to help support the horse to develop correct musculature. Okay, so not every horse's back is the same. They can all look different. They all have their own idiosyncrasies. So if your horse is changing its behaviour and you're getting any idea that there's any sore back here, it's time to investigate. And my final note, I'm going to repeat my first one. If you haven't found the cause, treating the symptom isn't really helping your horse very much. So go back, find the cause. Why has the back pain occurred? And let's try and get rid of that cause, strengthen your horse back up. So hopefully they have no more back issues now. And in the future, you're not facing any long-term damage in their back. Thanks for listening. I'm going to continue with this back information over the next couple of weeks. So stick with me, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you next week.